Paul Merton leading by 4 programmes to 3. Ian Hislop has everything to play for, except any prospect of an overall victory. Elsewhere in the news, there are suspicions that the BBC's coverage of the European elections was subject to government interference. After overcoming accusations of sexual harassment, Bill Clinton is introduced to his new White House staff. And following gruelling screen tests, the new James Bond is finally announced. With Ian Hislop, a comedian who is currently to be heard on Radio 1, where she's a new hit of the season. So in a few years' time, expect to see her opening supermarkets and playing Shawaddy Waddy records on Radio Trent. Donna McPhail. And with Paul, we were hoping to be joined by a tub of lard, but unfortunately it pulled out at the last minute. So instead we just went out onto the street and grabbed the nearest passerby, along with his 9 bodyguards, Salman Rushdie. So let's throw caution to the wind and round 1 to the dogs as we ask them to identify some news footage. Ian and Donna, a particularly tricky one for you.
Oh, yes. This is the remains of the British Army. There's 6 of them and a flag. Now, he's chatting up some bird, so's he.
So's he. Free food. That was the Normandy landings, or the D-Day celebrations, or whatever it was.
No, it's good for a topical news quiz. 50-year-old event.
Didn't stop the BBC forgetting to book the satellite, though, just 50 years' notice.
Vera Lynn was blacked out. Not in the Al Johnson sense, but...
I don't think anyone thought it was in the Al Johnson sense. Yeah, so
I thought the Queen was terrific, didn't you? She went out there to meet ordinary people, and who did she get to meet? John Major. There's ordinary.
Yeah, there we are. As a lone Lancaster bomber swooped low over the heads of assembled dignitaries. According to the Daily Telegraph, the Queen said, "A great debt is owed to those who made the landing." President Clinton said, "We are the children of these men's sacrifice." And John Major said, "Crikey." Back in Britain, many veteran soldiers complained they were unable to make the trip to Normandy because of the number of places taken by politicians and generals. In their defence, the generals said this was only fair, since they stayed at home last time. Veterans from the Second World War found themselves being entertained by the likes of Christa Berg and Alison Moyet. Apparently, many of them were absolutely appalled. They were hoping for the crash test dummies and niggers with attitude.
I know Christa Berg, I like him.
Isn't he the one who's just been caught doing something?
Hasn't he? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he shagged his nanny, didn't he?
Well, do you want to talk about it, or would you...
No, I think it's best left. I feel
yeah.
very sorry for her, and she must have been asleep, but let's leave it.
Paul and Salman, an unholy row for you.
Church. There's the steeple. Look inside, there's the people.
Ball tampering.
It's a mad...
Ray Illingworth.
I think this is Raymond Illingworth's bid to clean up the England cricket team by banning such awful things as coloured specs and mobile phones and designer watches at God, of course. Because he banned God, or at least the God's chaplain, from the dressing room.
Yeah.
I think there's not much to be said about that. He should be sentenced to death.
Yes.
Popular taste.
Yeah, you want to win it tonight, I think.
This was your chance to offend another religion, of course. Yes, it is. It's the sacking by tough Yorkshireman Ray Illingworth of the
Tough
England...
Yorkshireman Ray. What's all this cliche? Tough Yorkshireman Ray Illingworth.
Well, he's from Yorkshire. He's quite tough, and his name's Ray.
Yeah, Ray. He hasn't got a pig under his arm, buddy.
No. It is the sacking by tough
Yorkshireman. Boring old northerner.
Yeah, I can say that. It's the sacking by boring old northerner Ray Illingworth of the England cricket team's personal vicar, with whom they were supposed to discuss any spiritual problems during tests. Illingworth has also banned players from using mobile phones during matches, so now they can't even call the Samaritans. Well, the second half of our first round tonight takes the form of the first half of our second round, if that's as unclear as I think it is. Partly because this is the end of the series, but mostly because there's no news footage around other than that of D-Day. So let's march on to the headlines. Ian and Donna, explain this, please. The cog that's a big wheel in our future. And as it's the last show, we are going to give you something of a picture clue.
Oh, Alan Clark, isn't it?
No, I think that's Salman in one of his more obscure disguises.
That's an ant out gianting a cog, and they made them in Australia. And
Well,
what they do
live,
is they inject them into people and do things with them.
What, ants?
No, the ant stays outside. The cogs are sent in with motors into people's cells and repairs them.
It is,
So this sort of thing goes into your body and says, oh, this will cost you.
It'll cost you.
Sort of, can't do anything before Thursday, really.
The invention is based on a minute Japanese car, fully functioning, but smaller than a grain of rice. Unfortunately, though, it suffered a setback when it was left unattended near an artery, and some bacteria smashed the back window and nicked the stereo. Ants everywhere are now hoping that someone will devise a miniature filly shave. Paul and Salman, an everyday story from the courts for you. James Dean sues Tories.
Do we get a picture clue?
If we've got a picture to show.
Oh, right.
Oh, there we are.
Suddenly it's all so clear.
It's another Tory poster in which they use James Dean, and apparently in America, dead people are allowed to sue for defamation. Let's hope
Trouble
nobody...
for some of us.
Yeah.
Be a Conservative just like James Dean.
That's right. Don't be rebellious and have no cause.
Yes.
He was a Euro rebel, was he? Which poster was this?
Young Conservatives, I think,
Young
was it?
Conservatives said be a rebel with a cause, join the Young Conservatives. The big picture of James Dean.
Those crazy sherry parties they had. They all go off and have a bloody good game of Scrabble afterwards.
Do you suppose they knew that he wasn't in real life actually extremely heterosexual?
They probably didn't know that,
They probably
Salman.
didn't know that. Do you think it's a kind of secret come out and join the Tories poster?
Tories going for the gay vote.
Yeah.
They're going to need it.
They're not going to get it, are they?
No, well, maybe not. Maybe they will. Who knows? It is the decision by the family of...
Well, thanks for putting us straight on that one. I don't know what we'd do if you weren't here.
Yeah.
Probably buy a hamster.
We're coming on to Richard Gere later, actually.
You're doing what?
It was the decision by the family of James Dean to sue the Conservative Party for using his photo in a student recruitment poster. James Dean is, of course, an absurd role model to adopt, as most students take considerably more drugs before going out for a drive. Which adolescent anger brings us crashing to the end of this hybrid first round, and predictably the scoreboard imparts the dread news that, well, neither team is prepared to stand proud, both Ian and Donna and Paul and Salman possessing a level 4. And so we welcome with open mouths a special edition of that old enemy, the archive round, known more familiarly on certain sports quizzes as What Happened Next. So, Ian and Donna, what happened next?
Well, there was a very long sexual harassment suit. You can't see the actual footage because Helmut Kohl won't release it. Something very unpleasant happened.
Is this where Clinton said the wrong thing and said you look a bit like a sumo wrestler or something? Didn't you offend him by saying you're a big fat git, basically?
First true thing Clinton said.
But did he sort of like put his arms around him sort of like that and then sort of look like he said, "Sir, is this your shirt?"
Maybe...
Your underpants.
Clinton said, "We won the war." Ha 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 ha.
Twice.
A large watermelon fall out of his ear. It's like grapefruit. Something, a bit of fruit definitely falls out of his ear.
Well, it's a very likely answer, obviously.
Is it an egg?
Is what?
Does an egg fall out? Something falls out of his ear, and it's an egg. And he does that, and it sort of comes out scrambled. An omelette. Oh, well, tell us what sort of egg falls out of his ear, because I can't get it.
I don't need to tell you anything. I'm just going to roll the film and let that tell you.
All right, then.
I was thinking of you last night, Helmut, because I watched the sumo wrestling on television.
I would have preferred an egg.
Yes, not quite as amusing as
You stopped before the egg came out.
Sorry,
He
that's...
says, you look like a sumo wrestler. He says, I've got an egg in my ear, look. And that's the bit you should have shown.
You're not getting any points.
What does he say to Mitterrand? I was watching a porn film last night and I thought of you.
Bill Clinton was in Oxford this week to receive an honorary degree, but he admitted he'd been unable to follow the ceremony because it was in Latin, the only Latin that he knows being coitus interruptus. Paul and Salman, topical bit of archive for you. It's the Liberal leader in Eastleigh being interviewed before the by-election. The question is, what happened next?
Well, if you look at our by-election wins, most of them have achieved something fairly substantial. So what did Christchurch achieve then?
He says, well, it went on to become a very big city in New Zealand. It's doing very well.
Yes.
Does an egg fall out of his ear?
Well, in the context of Eastleigh, I hope an orange didn't fall out.
No, oranges.
Why is that, Ian?
You don't want an orange.
Could be a coming cat for age. You don't want an orange. I think he forgets. He just sort of says, I don't know. Yes. That's what he does.
But rather than saying it was part of our heroic march towards power, he forgets to say that.
Yeah. And you can hear somebody just out the shot of the camera saying, march towards power, and he can't...
So you're saying your answer is that there's no mention of a heroic march towards power?
No mention.
Yes.
Reasonable
And
enough.
nobody walks past playing hockey. And you can't see an elephant looking out the back window of that house.
It's
All those things happen next.
Right. Okay, let's take a butcher's.
Well, if you look at our by-election wins, most of them have achieved something fairly substantial. So what did Christchurch achieve then? That's a good question.
Well, what's the answer?
Can we...
No, what is the answer?
Yes, I think that's more or less what you said, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes, no mention of heroic marches to wherever it was. Any idea who it is speaking?
Is it Allen Sports Ground?
It's not Alan, no. It's
Name 3 Liberals, go on.
No, it's
Paddy
impossible.
Ashdown. Paddy Ashdown.
And someone else. Very good. It is, I'll tell you, I'll put everyone out of their misery. Liberal leader, I'm going to Keith House.
Keith House?
Keith House.
So Allen
like
Sports
Alan
Ground wasn't too far.
Who was rendered speechless there during an interview on Newsnight.
His parents could have called him semi-detached, couldn't they? If they were wicked.
Yeah.
Or Keith, if they were feeling really mean.
Stephen Milligan's successor in the Eastleigh constituency was one Stephen Reed, who's been described as John Major without the charisma. All of which blatant electioneering brings us to the halfway stage in the count, and the news so far is that both teams are uniformly even, Ian and Donna and Paul and Salman displaying a regimented 6. Time now for a round which for many I know is our odd one out round. 4 famous faces, which one's your local Euro MP? Paul, your men who would be king are John Major, Michael Heseltine, Peter Lilly and Prince Charles.
Well, the first 3 are all members of the government, and Prince Charles is the only one eating a Jaffa cake. And Prince Charles is the son of Elizabeth, and some people say that Prince Philip's his father. Some people say it, they do. You can't stop them.
3 of them have got their hands, or bits of their hands in the picture, and one of them hasn't.
Yeah, well, I hope that's his finger sticking up there.
Any idea, Ian and Donna?
3 of them are members of the Conservative Party, aren't they?
Yes, and one's wearing a hat. That's
4
it.
of them are members of the Conservative Party.
No, Charles is SWP.
Natural Law Party, isn't he?
Yes, yogic flying with Charles. Here we go.
That's the first impersonation Ian has ever done on this.
Yeah, he's done a few.
Oh, I got a few.
He does a really good Nana Muscori.
I do a really good Jerry Adams.
The odd one out is Prince Charles, as the other three have, between them, been pelted with the various ingredients of a quiche.
Now you say it, I mean...
It stares you in the face.
It does, doesn't it?
It's a cookery test.
Yeah.
Seems so obvious, doesn't it? Namely, eggs, flour and tomatoes. John Major won the last election after having eggs thrown at him. Of course, strictly speaking, you also need a large metal dish to make a quiche, so if there are any students watching, do bear this in mind next time you're in your area.
Do you get a point for picking out Prince Charles as the odd one out?
Yeah, strictly speaking, I
did that
suppose
as well,
you
so
do,
you get a
really,
point
yes.
Yeah, but it's not your go.
Oh, well...
Salman, you should get out more. You're a bit antisocial. Really?
Going anywhere nice for your holidays this year?
The bathroom.
In Australia, Prince Charles was not attacked by food, but an anti-royalist did suddenly run at him spraying an aerosol as he went. People just can't help acting on impulse. Salman, your four lost souls are Yoko Ono, Sister Marie Gabriel, John Major, again, and Richard Gere, making a surprise reappearance.
Right, so it's not about hamsters. So...
Is Yoko Ono the only one who's been banned from Test match cricket?
I think Richard has as well.
Richard Gere's a Buddhist. Yoko Ono's not a Buddhist, so it's not that.
And she's not Richard Gere?
She's not Richard Gere.
Any chance of a crack at the Buddhist, Salman?
Yeah, their sister... Oh, no, they don't have a concept of blasphemy, so it's difficult to blaspheme against them. Sorry.
Right. I stand corrected.
Stupid idiots they are, then. Right.
Is Sister Murray Gabriel the one who thinks it's going to be the end of the world?
Yeah, she's predicted the end of the world.
And John Major doesn't know it's going to be the end of the world. Could it be that?
It's something to do with taking out advertisements in newspapers.
Right. So Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford took out an advertisement to say they were happily married.
Yeah. Certainly when she was with John Lennon, she took... she took out...
keeping you up, Paul? Sorry, go on.
Great ponce. When she was with John Lennon, Yoko Ono, they took out newspaper advertisements as well, saying, you know, plant an acorn and all that kind of thing.
And Sister Murray Gabriel presumably took out an ad announced the end of the world.
Yeah.
And John Major took out an ad to say vote Tory in the Euro elections. So one of them is the odd one out.
John Major didn't take out an ad, all the others did, but there was a particularly sad small ad in the Times, which was taken out by the friends of John Major. I think it was a 16th of a page, on page 17. And it was revealed to be an obscure businessman in his constituency, who is John Major's friend, singular.
Yes, well, I think you're going to have to share the points on this one. One each. It's that all of them have placed full-page adverts in the press, except for John Major, on whose behalf an advert was placed by a supporter, but it only managed to fill a quarter of a page. He's never had a full-page advert defending him, unless, of course, you count the front page of the Daily Express for the last 2 years. Sister Marie Gabriel took out a full-page ad in the Times. The ad read, "To all world leaders, Pope John Paul, Archbishop Carey, Prime Minister Major, President Clinton, Chancellor Kohl, President Mitterrand, President Yeltsin, a gigantic comet is about to collide with the planet Jupiter. Stop all wars or face global extinction. For further information, ring 081-288-2774. Donna, 4 masters in their trade. For you, Sir Matt Busby, John Lennon, Stalin, and Doris Stokes.
Well, they're all dead, so that's not it, is it? Stalin's wearing a moustache. Doris has not got hers on today. What is that? Statues, maybe. They've all... No. Oh, I know what it is. Right, OK, so they've talked from the grave. One of them hasn't come back from the grave, hasn't said something.
They've all talked from the grave?
Yeah, they're all dead, and they sent messages. So Matt Busby apparently sent a message saying England was going to beat Denmark, and he was right. Apparently.
God, it must be fascinating, the afterlife. If you're still interested in football, like being with Angus for eternity. football.
Doris Stokes is the only one not to have sent a message from the grave, and she's the one who sort of is the medium, and I bet she's the one... No one's heard anything about Doris Stokes since she died.
It's a brilliantly deduced answer and completely correct.
Doris was terrific. She used to say things like, is there anyone here called Mr.? Mr. something. Yes, it's you. I've got a message.
It is that all of them have spoken to the Sun newspaper, in fact, to be precise, from beyond the grave, except for Doris Stokes. The late, great Sir Matt Busby correctly predicted the result of the England-Denmark match to psychic Margaret Collier during one of their daily chats. That's just before he went off for a kickabout with Bill Shankly and Mahatma Gandhi. During the 1992 election campaign, Stalin spoke to the Sun from beyond the grave to say that he supported Labour, although when he finally got into the polling booth, he panicked about his income tax and voted Tory again. Ian, a mixed bag for you. Edwina Currie.
Mixed bag,
Sir
yes.
Yes. Sir Winston Churchill, Melvyn Bragg, and Werner Brugmann and Harold Burma.
Werner who?
Brugmann
Werner
and
Brugmann.
Harold Burma.
Are they carpet makers?
They're not far off, actually.
Well, Winston Churchill's the only one watching the derby.
Hello, someone's nicked me binoculars.
Is this a literary question?
Well, it's sort of written down.
Is it that Edwina Currie's published a novel, Melvyn Bragg's published a novel, Winston Churchill won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and the other two aren't writers?
Yes, you're on the right line, certainly. So pick out...
God, talk about swotty. No wonder you got a fatwa on you.
I think you're about to get another one as well. Do you want to pick an odd one out?
The guys with the rug.
Well, did Churchill ever write fiction?
Churchill, maybe that's it. The others are all major fictionists, and he's a non-fictionist.
Yeah, perhaps that's
Edwina Currie, a major fictionist.
Well, John, major fictionist.
John, major fictionist. They've all written novels except Edwina.
Well, Edwina has written a novel, as you
No,
well
it's
know.
not a novel.
Yeah.
It's a collection of words. Randomly organised with the word tit and bum put in.
You've obviously read it then, haven't you?
I think I have. I'm the only person in the country who has read Edwina's novel.
Any particular reason?
I was paid to. I reviewed it for The Late Show, so you won't have seen it. We give up.
Yeah, well, no, I think I can give you 1 point, because you're almost there. It's that all of them have been recipients of literary awards, except for Edwina Currie. Melvyn Bragg, last year, won the Literary Review's Bad Sex Prize, awarded for the most inane description of a sexual act, narrowly beating a message on the toilet wall at King's Cross. Vernon Brugmann and Harold Burma are the most recent recipients of the Quarterfoil Award, which is, of course, given to a work judged to have contributed the most towards an understanding and/or love and appreciation of Oriental rugs. The runner-up was Gilly Cooper's book on rugs and carpets called Shag. All of which prize idiocy marks an end to this evening's Odd Ones, and the situation at this barely crucial point is that, well, both teams seem to be still locking horns, both with 9 points. And so we progress, if that's the word, and I think it isn't, to what's known as our Missing Words round, so called because it's a round in which some of the words are. This week's guest publication, from which one or two headlines may appear, is the literally riveting Angling Times. Ian and Donna, might as well choose you. What swings the balance?
Chubb.
Chum.
Major's terrifically good speech in the Euro campaign.
Testicle swings the balance?
It's quite possibly true, but not the answer. Chubb was closest. Carp is, in fact, the answer. Good guess. Next, what record is under threat?
Fish record.
You're guessing here, aren't you, Sal?
Is it Chubb?
Gypsy King's record.
Chubb is the nearest. Carp is the answer. Next, what challenge for Man of Steel?
Watch him go.
Danny Baker's Daz Challenge. Pepsi Challenge.
Certainly not, no.
Cop.
Tench is, in fact, what we're looking for. Next, what record is shattered?
Pike.
Is it runs?
No, carp is... And lastly, what, by all means?
Carp.
Carp.
Victory by all means. It's what Churchill said.
Trout is what we were hoping you might come up with. Right, Paul and Salman, your selection begins with major thrown what?
Out.
Lifeline.
Fish.
Kipper.
Thrown away by mistake.
Now, I'll give you one for lifeline. Euro lifeline is the...
Well, it's lifeline. I'll get 1 point then.
Because you didn't say euro. Next, Whitehall's top... Whitehall's top cats get what?
Officer Dibble.
Spade.
Spade.
Carp, 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 carp.
Is it get the cream or something?
It is get the cream, but not all something. But well done. Next, sexy secrets of what?
TV's Mr. Sex.
Alan Clark.
Alan Clark doesn't have any sexy secrets. They're on the diary.
Yes,
Haddock?
everyone knows.
Mariella Frostrup.
Haddock?
It's not haddock. It is, in fact...
Herring?
No.
Halibut?
The peeler crab. Is obviously the answer from the Angling Times. You need to watch Go Fishing with John Wilson to find out about that.
Yeah,
next, Nessie could be what?
Next Labour leader.
A carp. A carp that does impressions.
Could be Tench.
No, you are guessing. It's a sturgeon, is what we were aiming for. And finally, end the big what chaos?
Fish.
Carp.
Fish.
Carp.
Fish is the right answer. I think Paul just about got in there first, all of which desperate floundering brings us wriggling to the end of this evening's sport.
Oh, we're going to have a Salman Rushdie joke in a minute.
And one last look at the scoreboard leads us to the inescapable conclusion that this week's down and outs are Ian and Donna with 9, whilst this week's lucky beggars are Paul and Salman with 14. So, brand new state-of-the-art video recorder for our winners, the same video recorder without the instruction manual for our losers. And I leave you with news that following a planning blunder in Middlesbrough, an office block has been built over a car park without informing the drivers who generally use it. As Bill Clinton announces his new Secretary of State for Defence, critics once again accuse him of giving too many jobs to friends of the family. And Sweden announces its squad for the next Rugby World Cup. Until next winter, good night.